with the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is another exciting day, exciting guest. We're going to journey a little bit deep today into the legal system. Not so much somebody committing a crime and all that, but what's it like to be a lawyer and the pressures that they go through? And we have in studio all the way from Florida, originally an Indiana Hoosier, but came all the way in from Florida. Like to welcome to the show Miss Esquire herself, Miss Olivia Ash. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's get right down to it. Your life is just like Esquire, attorney. Tell the viewers a little bit about you before we get started.
So I'd say with the elevator speech, I am an artist at heart,
Okay.
a teacher by training, and I'm an attorney as a professional day to day. So those are the things that I do, but they're also motivators. I like to do a lot of things, and I have a lot of interests. I paint, I write, I was an athlete, I love fashion and textiles, and I love to read. It just depends upon the day. So that's me in a nutshell.
So what type of law do you practice? Because we mentioned that you are a lawyer, and there's different types of lawyers. Which one are you?
So I consider myself an education attorney. I'm a compliance attorney, and that means I focus on ERISA, or the Employee Retirement Act, as applied to benefits, welfare benefits, benefit plans. So you're an employer, you have a company, you offer health insurance to your employees. I'm the attorney that helps you and your advisors understand the law around that and what you can and can't do. And I work for an insurance services company full time.
Do you have people that don't like you?
Well, hopefully, most people like me, but the nature of being an attorney and having the label lawyer attorney can create some distance between you and other people. But generally, you'll have folks who address you like, oh, we can't stand attorneys. You guys always make life difficult. But that's not the truth.
When you say distance, explain a little bit, because evidently that seems to happen a lot with attorneys, because it's not like you see a lot of people hanging out with attorneys. So when you say distance, what does that mean, and why is there a distance?
So it's a great question. So distance, when I mean distance, is the sheer fact that attorneys have gone through school and gone through licensing, and there's a sort of importance and gravity to speak around the law, and people can get in trouble with the law, can sometimes distance you from just everybody else because they're afraid that they might misstate something, or you're always watching, you're always listening, and forgetting that lawyers are humans too.
Right.
So
why did you get into the field of law?
Law came about as probably my third career, and it happened through a natural course of just opportunities, doors and windows opening and closing. And I was working for a company in business development, and I was introduced to the process of contract managing and reviewing agreements, and I realized that I liked the problem solving aspect. And at that time in my life, I decided, well, if I'm going to be doing this, I should probably make the money that I can make doing this, since I'm doing it pretty well. And so I applied, took the LSAT, applied to law school, was accepted, and then I went to night program for 4 years and worked full time.
What school did you attend?
I attended the Indiana University McKinney School of Law here in downtown Indianapolis.
Okay. So take the viewers down a little bit of your childhood. I mean, you was an athlete. Your father was an athlete. What was it like in your household growing up?
Loud. So I am one of 8 children.
That's loud.
Yeah, it's loud and loud.
Yeah.
I'm one of 8 children, and yes, as you said, my father went to college and played sports, basketball. My mother stayed home. She had some background education in nursing, and she's been a mother full time. And so my parents met. My mom had 3 children at the time, and then met my dad and had 5 more. So
wow.
I have half siblings. I have full siblings. It's a blended, mixed family,
right.
And that brings with it its own interesting set of life challenges, but also excitements and things to be grateful for. So it was a loud, creative, athletic home.
What were some of the challenges in the home? Now you got a blended family. What's that like for somebody that's never actually been in a blended family or understands the concept of it?
I think probably the biggest challenge is just learning how to relate to all these people who are like you but not you, because every person's their own person, right? And so I have 3 older siblings that were from my mom's first marriage, And there's a 7-year gap between my older sister, and then I still have an older brother and older sister. So I'm in the middle, and then I'm also the oldest to 4 younger ones. So learning how to relate to one another, to understand the challenges they're going through, but also have time for yourself,
Right.
can be difficult.
Was there ever a person you mentioned? Let's move forward a little bit, because it seemed like you had a pretty good childhood. There was nothing dysfunctional except for really getting along with 8 kids in the house. When did the part of your life where we'll get into in a minute with the book, the depression and stuff, start to set in your life? Was it during the time that you got involved on the legal side of your life, or was it a combination of all of them, and then all of a sudden it just was like, holy crap, this particular field probably amplified it a little bit?
So, well, that's a great question. So, I've struggled probably more with loneliness than depression, because the two are technically separate in research.
Right.
Though we know that having depressive symptoms can contribute to loneliness, and they kind of talk to one another. For me, it's been a more of a loneliness that really started in my marriage, my former marriage. When I was married young, and
When you say young, what's young?
25. I think it was 25. I was just getting ready to turn 25.
Okay.
And we had dated in college. So I would say the loneliness for me was a combination of shortly after I was married, not long until into our marriage, but also I deal with chronic pain. I have several chronic pain and chronic genetic conditions I manage. So between those two, I started feeling more isolation and dealing with the anxiety and some of the depressive symptoms created by managing pain really began to contribute to feeling lonely. Like, is there anyone else who can understand this?
You was the pain and all that. Did you have all these symptoms while growing up and then going to college? Because you got a scholarship.
I did.
And you had pain. How did you manage that?
Well, I tend to just keep going, and that's a question I've been asked many times, and I can say that I'm the kind of person, I just get up and go and try again. And people say, well, you got to get through the pain and have a high pain tolerance. Well, as an athlete, there's an element of learning your pains and getting through challenges, right? That's what makes us stronger. But there's also doing too much. And I grew up in a very busy household. We had a good work ethic, but sometimes it could be too much work, too much physical labor, too much performance, too many ice buckets in the ankles sometimes. And maybe we could have stepped back a little. Right. So that kind of carried through school. I'm blessed genetically in one way, and in other ways not as well with the chronic. I'm a pretty strong person, and when I was younger, I would just, go to the athletic training room in college and be in pain and ice and do my physical therapy, have surgery, and just keep going.
But did they know how to deal with the fact that you already had pre-existing pain to begin with? And then being an athlete, you're right, there's 2 different types of pain. You're already suffering from pain, but now you got to perform from the scholarship aspect. Were they able to really understand how much more you was actually putting on yourself?
At that time, no. There was not a lot of, this was early 2000s.
There wasn't a lot of research.
There wasn't a lot of research because I played sports in high school, and it was kind of a get through it, be tough, put your ankles in ice, put some ice on your shoulders, and just keep going. And what I noticed is as I went through college, and I talk about this in my book, I was in a semi-accident, I played sports, and I just started noticing the pain was getting worse.
Right.
And you can only do physical therapy and surgery so much before your body just starts to you're done. You're done. And so at that point, there's that mentality of, hey, I've got all these alarms, but I have to perform. I have expectations on me. That carried over into law school, and that's similar to what my experience of law school was like, and what I see in the legal profession. One of the reasons why I did my research on mental health, specifically loneliness, because when you're in a high-performing situation, one, there's not a lot of other people who are at that high-performing level, so it's isolating. 2, you have the expectations, and you've been conditioned to keep going, to perform, and you're also self-regulating, so you don't always talk to people about it, and your perspective isn't broad. So then that's even more lonely and isolating. And I noticed those similarities between high-achieving athletics and high-achieving academics.
Were you Were you a lawyer in your when you first got married? Or you was
No. I went to law school at the age of 35. I started,
okay.
and didn't become a licensed attorney until I was 39, almost 40 years old.
When you got married the first time, how much of the chronic pain and the signs of depression and all
Mm-hmm.
that, because you're also young and you're dealing with a marriage, how did all
Yeah.
that combine as well?
Well, so at that time, I was younger. So I had graduated from undergraduate school with exercise physiology degree, and I was a personal trainer.
Okay.
And I was doing pretty well, but I'd already had several surgeries by that time through college.
Hmm.
I love my job as a personal trainer here in Indianapolis, but after a year, I had to resign to have more surgery,
Hmm.
and I went back to grad school. So those were challenging. It was challenging in my marriage because it's hard to be in pain, but also my former husband, great person, but he was going through his own challenges as well, and we were very different personalities.
And at 25 years old,
Yeah.
you're still really trying to find your own.
You're learning yourself.
You're
Yes.
learning yourself.
Yeah. And my own personal self-compassion, self-esteem was not as strong as it is now, and I'm continuing to work on that based upon my own life experiences. I talk about that a little bit in the book as well.
Tell me a little bit about one part of your life experience before I ask my next question.
Yeah.
That really changed you. What part of that one part of your life, without giving everything away, really changed you?
Oh goodness, I have a few of those moments. I would say the experience of going through divorce, the decision to divorce and going through that changed me.
How?
I'm a commitment person, and didn't take marriage lightly. I grew up in a faith-based family, and I was like, well, we're going to make this work. And for 15 years we were together. In 12 years, we did what we could to make it work. And so when I knew that I needed to leave for the health of myself, but our marriage, because it was detrimental to both of us, the decision to end it and know that would I ever find someone else? Did I make the right decision? It's going to hurt. It's going to be costly. That process, but also choosing myself, and that's knowing that that was the healthiest decision, and I still count it the most difficult decision I've ever made.
So then you wind up going to law school, achieving your degree. What was that? What was that like? That first encounter of being a lawyer. Now you got to really see what the pressure's like. You're working for a company. You got out of your marriage. Now you're basically on your own. But now you changed one stress for something that's probably even more stress. What was that like on your first journey?
It was, you know, and you have a fitness background. In order to strengthen our muscles, sometimes we do have to challenge them, and then we have micro tears in our muscles, and then we have to have a rest period to allow ourselves to rebuild and strengthen so we can handle more difficult burdens. And that's kind of how it felt for me. You know, I started law school and went 2 years before divorcing. So I divorced in the middle of law school and moved my life, and then 2 more years and had surgeries, and then took the bar, finally passed. And that entire process was like a very long workout and long endurance run. And then when I became licensed and was working and having to deal with the challenges in work as an attorney and what people think, and not making a mistake writing a word or making sure I read something the right way and reviewed it, it was difficult, but I felt stronger because I had made it through all those micro decisions. And, you know, moving after 12 years and going to school every night and, you know, losing weight and getting healthier and going through surgeries, each one of those decisions makes you stronger. So getting to the point of being a lawyer and someone not liking you doesn't feel good, but that's not the big picture.
Right. So what is the big picture? What is the big picture?
Yeah, the big picture is we're all part of the world, and we are responsible for taking care of ourselves and not sweating the small stuff. And that's no small thing for me to say, because my challenge is always sweating the small stuff. Not only because I'm a detail-oriented person by nature and I'm incredibly meticulous, but then my training as an attorney makes me even more so hypervigilant. So if I feel like it really comes down to not sweating the small stuff and stepping back and taking care of yourself to bring your best self forward, that's a big deal, because that's something I have to remind myself of every single day.
you mentioned that you went back and you did your research. We're getting
Yes.
ready to get into this book.
Yeah, of course.
What made you decide to do research about individuals dealing with, I don't even want to call it a mental illness, but just depression and anxieties and all this? What made you decide to do this research yourself? Because clearly you can't be the only lawyer that's going through this. I know a lot of lawyers,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
open my eyes to a lot more. And now that I'm thinking about it, you guys had to keep secrets. Your friendships is minimum because you probably don't. People probably, like you said, are kind of, hey, I got to watch what I say. So it's almost like you are in a state of isolation, and the closest people to you will probably be your spouse and those that are in the
Same profession,
in the
yeah.
same profession. So what made you decide to go out, and how bad was your depressions and illnesses starting to affect you that made you say, I'm gonna go research this and see how deep it really goes?
So the reason I did the research, and the research that I completed was at McKinney School of Law through the review board as an adjunct faculty in health science. And that sounds very complicated, but that's by design. So my background before I went to law school was in well-being education as a licensed teacher in health and also exercise phys. And I had to do my doctoral thesis my last year of law school. That's a requirement. And I heard a statistic that said, it was in a 2018 survey of American workers, that they rated the loneliest of workers. Lawyers were the loneliest, followed by doctors and other licensed professionals, engineers, veterinarians, dentists.
Right.
And I was like, ooh, that's a problem. I'm getting ready to go be a lawyer.
Right.
And I'd already gone through divorce. I'd already experienced that and surgeries, and I'd seen my colleagues in law school run into challenges.
Right.
And as a health professional, I wanted to combine the two and do something that mattered, because that's what drives me. I didn't want to write a law review article on a legal concept from 200 years ago. I wanted to write something that could work now for my people,
Right, right.
myself, and reflect what was happening. And so I did the research. That's what started it. And in doing so, I was healing myself, and sharing it allows people to see behind the curtain on the challenges that legal professionals face and other licensed professionals.
How was this accepted with your professor? Part one of that question. Part two, how was it accepted amongst your peers? Because individuals don't like to come out and say things that bother them.
Right. They don't like to talk about the hard things.
Especially
No.
in your field.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because you don't want to get disbarred. You got to make money. You don't want people labeling you. How was this accepted on both sides of the table?
So you have to provide your thesis to a professor, and my professor at the law school, Professor Allison Martin, was incredibly supportive. She was teaching professional responsibility. So in her role teaching that course, she knows the challenges that lawyers face because we're under professional rules. And part of that is we have to take care of ourselves so we can serve others.
Right.
Unfortunately, in my experience, the legal profession has opportunity for improvement in taking care of itself and actually talking about that and doing it in practice. And so when I first started the research 5 years ago and talked about it, I had lawyers laughing at me at conferences because, oh, you're a well-being person. They laughed about the things that they struggle with.
Right.
Because what else do you, and I know that a lot of times people laugh about the things that are most difficult and vulnerable because what else do they do? However, my research article was released, and I wrote an article in March of 2020 when happened to be the pandemic starting. And after the pandemic is now ended, the focus and lens on lawyer well-being has increased the last 3 years of research, so much so that it's now much more acceptable. And we're seeing this drive in other areas of lawyer well-being. I focus very specifically on loneliness and emotional health. And so we're finally starting to see those. And that's where I've been trying to contribute. And there's more reception now from the profession.
What do you think? You're a lawyer, and I'm pretty sure that now that people are coming to you in your profession and sharing it, what are some of the common traits that you're seeing with the fact that you probably was one of the only one that even thought about writing a thesis about this. But now people are coming out in your profession and being open. What are some of the things that you're noticing that they have been suffering with and was too afraid to come out and say?
So what the research shows, and I'm making generalities, and there's some statistics in my book, and you can find these, but generally speaking, lawyers tend to have significantly higher rates than the general population of everybody else for depression, suicidal thoughts, substance misuse, and anxiety. And if you break that down between males and females, you'll see differences. And
Which one is higher?
female lawyers tend to experience higher rates of anxiety. Males tend to experience higher rates of depression if they're attorneys. It's pretty even on the substance misuse or suicidal thoughts. But it's so much more higher than the general population. So when we do research, we have to look at trends and we have to compare to something else. And I just noticed among my peers and other legal professionals, the drive to never fail, the drive to have to always be accepted, the drive to be what we call hypervigilant, which is a characteristic of post-traumatic stress, where you're always watching your back and you're always on, which allows your body not to rest. And you tend to be more irritable and more frustrated, you can make more mistakes, and your quality of life just crumbles because you don't know yourself. And that's my thesis.
Which field is more prone in the legal field? Is it criminal law? Is it family law? Is it corporate law? Malpractice? Which one? Because you got people need to understand there's different lawyers.
Yeah,
So which one rated the highest in your research?
So I did not in my research I did not look at the difference in the types of lawyers. I just looked at it very openly, but my research was the first research to actually ask law students about their level of loneliness. That had never been done before when I looked in the field. Now there's so much more research parsing out well-being issues amongst the types of attorneys. But what I would say, and I'm sure the attorneys would argue this, is unfortunately, law is an adversarial profession. So we are responsible for regulating our behavior, but also you have to go in and argue, a lot of lawyers, against your best friend you went to school with. And it's adversarial. So it tends to make people argumentative and hold things back and not share and not trust. So, you know, I am a salaried attorney working in a private business, and I chose that field because I want well-being balance. I don't want to work 60, 80 hours a week, which is often the expectation if you're in a law firm, or you're a litigator, or you're doing that all the time. You give your life to the profession, and that's hard to have a life and a family and all the things you want to do when you're afraid that you have to produce and you're isolated. So I wouldn't say one or the other is worse. I think it's just different personalities manage stressors differently. And there's some people who are really excited and love it, and there's some who don't. And they went into law for reasons that weren't really good motivators.
Right. You mentioned the need to bring awareness to this. You wrote a book.
I did.
Tell me a little bit about that, why you wrote the book and why you feel that this is a topic that needs to be addressed, because that is one of the reasons that you wrote the book, but from your own lips, why is there a need? Why did you feel the need to write the book?
This book, I wrote this book for myself, I wrote this book for my colleagues, I wrote this book for anyone who's felt lonely. It has been an internal drive that has not allowed me to rest since I started the research. That's the best way for me to explain it, because and I talk about this a little bit in the introduction, how I was like, okay, I finished law school, I got my thesis, I don't want to talk about loneliness. It's really kind of tough to talk about and research loneliness.
Right.
But then it kept popping up and people kept asking me questions, and my own life experiences, and just waking up thinking, this is an issue, people need to hear about it. And we were in COVID, and because I'm a health professional and because I had talked about it, people started asking me. And I was, riding my bike home one evening, and I was like, I gotta do this. It's not gonna go away until I do this.
What were some of the questions that people were reaching out to you about during this time, as you getting ready to embark on that, on the book?
What was often, I've presented. I wrote the research. It was accepted and published in the Health Matrix, the Law of Health Medicine, and I have spoken to the Wellness Council of Indiana and some of the other local and here in Indianapolis businesses about emotional health. And what I would often get is not necessarily as much sort of something that is widespread notoriety about loneliness, because again, nobody wants to admit it.
Right.
I would have the conversations, I'd have people call me, I'd have people just share with me their emotions and feelings. Like, I know you do this research. This is how I'm feeling. Is this normal for me?
Right.
This is really a struggle. So as it just sort of was piling up, and I felt the need to address it because I am a good writer, and I love to write, and I love to paint, and I love to draw and teach. So I decided to write my book.
Did you, during the development of the book, were there any reaching out to therapists or psychiatrists to help you navigate the book, or you just went through your own experience and then the questions that you was given countlessly through the pandemic and through your journey to where you at right now?
So, and that's a great question to think about how someone who reads this book can use it. I designed this book with a specific purpose. So I did the research, and that research has like over 500 footnotes. If somebody wants to read, it's like 100 pages. That's research. There's a completely different way of doing it, and that's available. I want the average person, and when I say the average person, I mean anybody who's walking on the street, a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, anyone, a teen, an elder, to take this book and be able to read it and understand the research. So I wrote it in a way that still sounds like me, but I wrote it through stories. And what I did is I share my own memories. There's a timeline, but I also weave through that my research, but I put it in I put Loneliness 101, and I actually included 26 graphics that I hand drew to illustrate my research in a different way, as if I were teaching in a classroom.
Making it fundamentally sound.
Making it fundamentally sound, but also, so I would rely on research and statistics. You know, the Surgeon General in April of this year launched his epidemic of loneliness and social isolation, and that we need to do something as a country. So something I knew about 3 years ago that was struggling, and I saw it, is now everywhere because we know it's a challenge. And so there's pieces from that, and there's research from my own research, but I conducted another survey, and I asked my social media followers to submit their times when they felt lonely, because I felt that people reading
Did you get a high
stories.
response from that?
Well, given whether it's loneliness, I wasn't counting it high or low. I received responses. There's probably about 15 stories of persons.
About, and what was the age brackets that you was probably
Anytime.
getting?
So I said anyone in my social media. So what I asked them to do is I structured my survey like I did in my original research. And so they're all confidential. There's no names used.
Right.
And in the middle of the book, when I talk about the research, you can then read the stories. And I said, this is a female who's who's 20, between ages 20, 30. And this is when she felt the loneliest, in her words. And people submitted that.
That's nice.
Yes, that way, because I want people to see that you can feel lonely for so many different reasons, but you're not alone in it.
Right.
And so so it's a memoir, it's a manual from the research, it's sharing stories.
How did you come up with the name? We didn't tell the viewers the name, but I thought it was a really good name. The name of the book and how you came up with that name and the purpose for that name.
So the book's title is Painting the Landscape of Loneliness, the Drive to Connect, and the Strategies to Identify Your Needs. So painting the landscape of loneliness is something that is an image that came to me as I was writing and doing the research. Because when you're painting a landscape has lots of different elements. And loneliness has lots of different elements, but I'm also a painter.
Okay.
And I started painting again when I was having one of my many surgeries. But I had painted and drawn since I was a child, and I let go of that because I focused on performing in academics. And I was like, why should I cut out that part of my life? This makes me happy. And it's actually a good form of therapy. And so the cover of the book is a macro image of one of my paintings. That's a commission that's in someone's home. And I just think that it's a really great metaphor to help people understand that loneliness isn't just a black and white definition. It's a culmination of your experiences, and they matter, but you're not alone in it because we're humans, and that's how we're designed.
And isn't it funny, you focused on something that a lot of people forget about, and you said it point blank. You gave up something that you enjoyed doing for so long, and that
Yeah.
was painting, and you realized that you enjoyed it, you brought it back into your life, and it became a part of your journey, a part of your therapy. How important was that when that resurfaced to you?
Oh my gosh, it's everything. Because we have our roles in society, we have our occupations, we have our needs to make ends meet. But we have things within us intrinsically that drive us that we can contribute, and I call it our sparkle.
Okay.
And you know, one of my law school friends dubbed me the sparkling unicorn, and that stuck with me because I love all things sparkly. But we each have our own sparkle, but we have to find it. But we know it if we ask ourselves.
Right.
And that's part of what I talk about in the book is the exercise that I created to help individuals asking yourself every day, what do I like to do? And especially for my legal professionals and colleagues, so many of them
They find it hard
to do. Some of them do, but there are those, and especially in the well-being community and legal profession, they have had a moment, usually more than one, when they realize my life is not my occupation. And I love to do all these other things. And if you talk to a lot of lawyers are incredibly talented people in many other disciplines.
Okay.
But sometimes we forget that, and we forget ourselves because we've chosen something we think matters. And what really happens is the things that we can contribute every day in creating matters.
I'm definitely glad that you have taken the time to come on the show and share your journey with the landscaping and how important it is to understand that landscaping of your own and to create that environment. How can the viewers get a copy of the book? It's ready to come out.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
I'm excited.
Autograph copy needs to come right here on that table.
I will. You'll get one. So the book is, I am presently working with my publisher, doing the final touches on the layout so that it flows the way I want it to, and I'm taking you through the journey. The book is available January 16th of 2024. It will be available on Amazon and in print in Kindle, and please go out there and purchase it. It'll be on sale the day it launches for 99 cents, so you can buy it the day only that it launches. And I would love it if they purchase it, read a little bit, write a review. That really helps me to get the message out. So that's January 16th, 2024. And viewers can always go to my website, livebalanced, LIVBALANCED.net. So it's Live Balanced, to play on my name. But also, the goal is to seek balance every day. And when it comes to loneliness, it's not a life sentence.
Right.
You can do something about it.
Yeah, you can do something about it.
It drives us to connect with ourselves and with other people.
Are you available for guest appearances and speaking and talking
Absolutely.
about it? How can they reach you there? Through the website?
Through the website. So you can reach me through my website. There's a contact me at livebalanced.net, or you can email me directly, and that's live, L-I-V, at livebalanced.net, LIVBALANCED.net.
Such an empowering book. I can't wait to get my autographed copy of it.
Oh, yeah.
Leave the viewers with words of empowerment, because definitely if you wrote that book, it's definitely a book, a must read. Leave the viewers with something that only you can leave them with.
Do what you can, and do what you can with what you have. That's all you can ever do in any moment. We can all wake up in the morning and, what do I have today? So I'm going to do what I can with what I have, and over time, you can look back and see how much you had, and you'll begin feeling more grateful for it, because the past informs our present but doesn't predict our future.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been attorney, Esquire, Miss Olivia Edge, on the Andre The Beast Crayton